This is the first shot from Midnight Special. Such a provocative image instantly triggers questions in the mind of an audience. We're also finding our bearings as this cold open drops us in an already unfolding situation. Our minds scour every shot for more information. The TV gives us a hint, the shotgun's a little more. We quickly become curious as more questions arise. Who are these guys? And the boy? What about the boy? The lack of dialogue or predictable setup catches our attention from the first second, and without realizing it, we're becoming detectives, actively engaged in the mystery. We have just enough to go with, and it's almost exciting to discover new nuggets of information. Before we know it, we're on board for an emotional father-son story, one that echoes the sci-fi films of the 70s and 80s, and by the time the score crescendos and the titles hit, we're under the spell of Jeff Nichols and captivated by how he controls audience information. It's funny reading criticism for this film online. Most of it boils down to people wanting more answers about the story, which is ironic because the lack of spoon-feeding and bravery to hold back is exactly what I find fascinating about the film.
I think there is a way to orient the story that makes people feel like they haven't seen it before. And all of that is about information. You know, you have all of this information in a story, and how am I going to give it to you? And one thing I realized really from my first film, Shotgun Stories, is if you remove information, the audience is extraordinarily good at making connections. In fact, they want to. In fact, that's how their brains work.
What separates Nichols from me is the control, the restraint, the under-reliance on dialogue, the strength of visual storytelling, the care and consideration and timing of information that doesn't cheat and is organically revealed. So let's look at a few examples of how Nichols holds back but actually delivers more. Most screenwriting gurus want the characters' names to be revealed to the audience within the first few minutes, so as not to lose or confuse the audience. And I'm sure Nichols was tempted to have, "Hey Lucas, it's time to go." But being a writer of a higher caliber, he breaks this conventional rule to respect the audience. We learn Roy early on through the TV voiceover. Elton is heard when Lucas shouts back and needs something from him, and Lucas is left completely unintroduced. It's not until 9 minutes in this happens.
Lucas!
And we finally learn the information that we needed to know, but it doesn't cheat and unfolds naturally as part of the story.
I have a pretty strict aesthetic for dialogue. You know, I think dialogue is behavior, and if you try and force words into an actor's mouth or a character's mouth that are dishonest, I think the audience feels it. So, you know, between, you know, this desire to reduce, expository information, and also just to try and have the characters behave as I think they would in these scenes, it made for this really kind of svelte narrative.
This also goes for delivering backstory. We don't get any flashbacks or obvious dumps of information to keep the audience comfortable. Lucas remains mostly a question mark to us until 43 minutes in, when it naturally comes up in conversation. Another character wonders the same thing the audience wants answered. The timing of information also explains why he's skilled and capable the way that he is. And the final line of this conversation gives another layer of understanding to his earlier obstacle.
What do you do in St. Angelo?
I'm a state trooper.
Choosing how much information to share or not is a very deliberate choice, especially on a more macro level. If you imagine the three parallel running story threads, the family, the government, and the ranch, their screen time is split more like this. And as a writer, you have to decide how much time does each section deserve in order to contribute to the overall story. The first section allows us to keep all of our time on the core emotional journey of the family, and have enough time to slow down and be purposeful during realizations and moments of anticipation. The government is less interesting and generic, but Nichols gets around this by focusing on Adam Driver's character, who is an outlier from the system and far more nuanced. This character is most at risk of slipping into cliché, but Driver's performance elevates it to something delicate and intriguing. Highlighting another point, the power of the camera and the audience's ability to read the subtlest of cues, With the right script and the opportunity to really work, a great actor can communicate so much more information and emotion with very little, especially if you remove unnecessary dialogue and exposition and trust that you can rely on the actors to do their thing. It can bring the best out of them, and it's why Jeff Nichols' body of work is filled with powerhouse performances. This is one of the factors that helps Nichols be incredibly economic with the ranch storyline, especially having the shortest overall screen time and requiring scenes that are mostly cat and mouse setups. Nichols really relies on the audience here to fill in the gaps he purposely creates. For example, the purpose of this scene is for the bad guys to get information about Elton's location, and it runs just under 2 minutes. You could imagine a break-in or a torture scene or turning the house upside down to look for clues, but instead we spend one of those minutes in the car.
Sometimes we are asked to do things that are beyond us.
So as soon as we're brought to this moment,
Are you Sarah Tomlin's mother?
our innate storytelling capacity jumps ahead. So instead of wasting a second more, Nichols cuts away, and we're on to another scene. The next time we pick up with this story thread, we get this shot. The visual detail that brings us up to speed and closes the story gap is the Lego piece, seen earlier as the family hides out. This one object lets us know that the bad guys succeeded, got the information and tracked them down. But we as the audience put this together ourselves in a matter of seconds. It's a great example of what Andrew Stanton describes here.
That's your job as a storyteller, is to hide the fact that you're making them work for their meal. It's this well-organized absence of information that draws us in. I first started really understanding this storytelling device when I was writing with Bob Peterson on Finding Nemo, and we would call this the unifying theory of 2 + 2. Make the audience put things together. Don't give them 4, give them 2 + 2. The elements you provide and the order you place them in is crucial to whether you succeed or fail at engaging the audience. Editors and screenwriters have known this all along. It's the invisible application that holds our attention to story.
It also makes me back up and think about this scene. Lucas witnesses for the first time the family being together, and it's a touching moment, yet layered in with this shot of the Lego, the unseeming detail that sets up the heavy lifting of the story later. It reminds me that the quality of a writer is how well they're able to hide the inner workings of a scene. This type of restraint and under-reliance of sharing allows the audience to generate the story internally, rather than being a passive observer. You'll notice that Nichols plays with this idea as we enter the third act, as Elton's stolen, leading us into a car chase. Except the overstimulating drone that comes from the usual non-stop explosions of car chases is flipped on its head here, as we immediately run into a traffic jam, and what unfolds is a suspense-filled sequence that reminds me of the border scene in Sicario. Nichols lets the stakes do all the work here and relies heavily on visual storytelling. A high-paced action set piece is all of a sudden a snail-paced crawl, but the frustration and angst of the characters is mirrored in the way the audience is made to wait. It's a great example of the phrase drama is anticipation mingled with uncertainty. As it unfolds, we notice the helicopter. Ideas cross their minds, but it's kept all inside until the final reveal. The ranch were stopped, we realize Elton was taken, and it's all over. Again, nothing is said. The actors are allowed to play this moment internally, without any unnecessary screaming or banging the steering wheel. It's this complete respect and trust of the audience that makes this film so engaging, and it's a writing style that prioritizes emotional character work and economic storytelling. Going back to the classic tool of show, don't tell, which is essentially the climax of the film. Right down to the last moment when Roy looks out, thinking of his son out there somewhere. The final nod to the audience is the glow in his eyes, implying some sort of lasting connection. Even though the emotional story of the film is a parent having to let his son go and be his own person, we wrap things up with the silver lining of spiritual transference that gives us a sense of their bond. So if you're writing a story and you want the audience to actively engage with the emotional journey, figure out how to give them 2 + 2. Consider taking away as much exposition as possible and find organic ways to layer in detail that conveys the information. Trust in the power of the camera and how much a single image can communicate. Trust in the subtlety of an actor to do the heavy lifting. Trust and respect the audience to fill in the story gaps. because sometimes the way you tell a story can elevate the subject matter that it's about. And it's why Jeff Nichols' body of work can cross various genres, but still maintain that quality, that economic storytelling, that honesty, and that overarching principle that less is more. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video on one of my favorite Jeff Nichols films. Let me know in the comments below your favorite of his films. Mine would be Midnight Special, very closely followed by Mud. This week, this channel has passed 50,000 subscribers. That's incredible. Thank you for the continued support and conversation about great films. There are people that comment on my videos that have been with me for almost 10 years on my original Punch Drunk Love video. I've got tons of new videos on the way, so be sure to subscribe for more, and thank you to all of my Patreons for the support and for making these possible. See you in the next one.